Hey guys, it's Jay. Welcome back to my channel, where we discuss the popular culture of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's been a long time coming, guys, but I finally got to reviewing the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Classics Collection. I'm going to start off with the Ultimate He-Man from Super7. So the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Ultimates, they usually come in these mailer boxes. This was started by Mattel when they were originally releasing the Masters of the Universe Classics line. And now Super7, who has a license, has decided to continue the tradition by sending these out in their mailing packages. They're very Spartan in nature. They don't have any real color on the box, just a black and white print here of the branding for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the actual figure that's enclosed inside the actual mailer, the Super7 branding, and of course, reminding everybody that this is an adult collecting item. Okay, this is a big moment for me, guys. Let's open this up, as I've waited right now over a year to really open this up to see what's inside. Oh wow, there's that blue packaging. I am really excited to be opening this up. Oh my goodness, guys. Holy cow. This, for anybody who grew up in the 1980s collecting toys as a kids, this is truly an icon. If you were going down to Woolco here in Canada, or Sears, or Canadian Tire, again, here in Canada, this was an iconic item. There would literally be shelves dedicated, an entire aisle dedicated to Masters of the Universe when I was a kid. You would literally be walking down the aisles, and the first thing you would see would be this bright red and blue packaging. But this, seeing this as it is right now in its glory, is just incredible for me. Oh my goodness. I really love the starry background, so iconic, along with the Masters of the Universe title font, the exploding background. I don't even know what those are. Are those meteors? They're just like exploding from the background, highlighting the figure in the background and just pushing the figure forward, really getting you excited for what you're about to open. This is incredible. We can actually see what appears to be a mini comic, but from other reviews, we already know that this is not a mini comic. It's actually just a backer, but still completes that iconic, classic retro toy design and packaging design that was done by Mattel all the way back in 1984. Wonderful design. He-Man is, he's encapsulated in this wonderful bubble package. We can see him in all his glory, the actual accessories, which we'll get into in a minute. It says that this is He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Wonderful. It also tells us this is the Ultimates Edition, differentiating it between this version and the version that came out earlier from Mattel for the Masters of the Universe Classics Edition, Filmation style version. Let's take a look at the back and see what the back looks like. Wow. This is every Filmation fan's dream. Again, this is something that I've been waiting for years. I have been waiting for a true Filmation style He-Man, and here we are. The top illustration at the top is He-Man's iconic pose as he's transforming into He-Man from being Prince Adam. And he's just holding the sword and grasping it in that iconic pose, declaring that he has the power. A little bit of a caption that says, Prince Adam calls upon the power within Castle Grayskull to become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Wonderful, wonderful. Super7, of course, having their branding everywhere. And this really harkens back to what it was like to be a kid back in the 1980s. After you would be in the stores, you would pick this up, look at the front, see the figure, and then turn it around to read a little bit more about what the play action features are, as you can see here. The fact that it's got a removable head and can be swappable with other heads that are included, accessories. And then, just to give you a little bit more of a tease, it actually shows additional figures which you can collect on the line. This is wonderful. Really harkens back to the 1980s, being a kid, and just begging your parents for, I need this character, and I need that character, and I need this guy, and I need that guy. This really does capture the essence of what it was like in the 1980s to be here and collecting all these toys. I find it really ironic that the Christmas He-Man is displayed here, when in truth, by the time this figure was sold and being ready for pre-orders, the Christmas He-Man really wasn't available any longer. I think he might still be available on BigBadToyStore.com and maybe some other secondary retailers. Anyway, this is a wonderful callback, as I said, to the 1980s aesthetic. Love it. But let's not dilly-dally any further. I can't wait any longer. I really have to break into this package and finally be united with the most powerful man in the universe, He-Man. There really is something to be said about the actual packaging itself. I mean, this is so iconic to me as a collector. Having come from being a kid in the 80s and seeing these such iconic packaging. And I really would like to keep this aesthetic. I really would want to keep this in mint condition. And unfortunately, as is necessary in these things, you do have to actually, break them out of the package. And because of that, glue is glue. You really can't do anything about it. I've tried multiple techniques in the past to try and preserve these, in what I consider to be works of art. And unfortunately, nothing's really prevailed. The only thing that you can do, hopefully, I hope you can see here, is try to be as minimal and as delicate as possible when you're ripping out of the package, just to try and keep that aesthetic as mint as possible. Just so even though there is separation, if you put it in just the right angle, you can still see what the intention was for the actual design. Anyway, it is what it is, and for some collectors, in terms of keeping them mint on card, means that their appreciation will increase. But for me, someone who really grew up on this and wants to admire them and touch them and play with them, a memory of being a kid back in the 80s, I really want to take it out and be able to put them back in. So I hope that in the future we might be able to see removable packaging and, something which we can put in, take out, and actually keep in mint condition for the future. So before we get to the figure itself, I want to talk a little bit more about this amazing card back. Wow. This is incredible. So if you were a collector of, or heck, if you were just a kid in the 1980s buying Masters of the Universe toys, you'll know and recognize immediately that this is actually an homage to the miniature comics which were included with the Masters of the Universe toys. Unfortunately, this is not a mini comic, but it does harken back to that aesthetic, and I really love the way they've handled this wonderful design. Here we have He-Man in his signature by the power of Grayskull pose, just being transformed from Prince Adam and about to declare that I have the power. As we can see, it really does say, by the power of Grayskull. This is an iconic image with Castle Grayskull in the background, the Masters of the Universe logo. You can't get any better than this, guys. On the back, it is a welcoming to the young warrior who has purchased this item. It says, "Welcome, young warrior. Behold, an exciting new bio. He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe." It goes on to say, imbued with the power of Grayskull, He-Man uses his great strength to protect Eternia and foil the various deadly schemes and the machinations of Skeletor. It keeps talking about his struggle against Skeletor, his honor, his duty, and has a wonderful illustration of the Filmation version of He-Man. And of course, it's signed by Skrullos. Wonderful, wonderful illustration. I'm not really sure if this was actually illustrated, taken from the Filmation version. I think it might have been redone by an artist. But again, wonderful, wonderful design. My only pet peeve, if you will, is when I was taking this out of the package, it was stuck together by tape at the corners, and I was not too thrilled about that. I really have to say, one of my biggest pet peeves with something like this, which is a collectible item, and this is not a cheap toy. This is definitely for an adult collectible, as it says on the actual packaging itself. You would really want to be able to keep these pristine and in great condition. And when they're stuck together with tape on the corners like that, that really, really bugs me, mainly because I'll be showing it a little later, but it took me quite a while to actually pry the corners out of the tape itself, and the adhesive is very, very sticky. And for me, someone who wants to really keep this and keep it pristine, the corner, having non-frayed corners and keeping it as mint as possible is important to me, and that kind of thing really bugs me. And now, without a doubt, this truly is the most powerful man in the universe. It is He-Man. Oh, I've waited very long for this day, as someone famous once said. This is an amazing, amazing rendition of the mighty He-Man. There are a couple of things which we're going to get into, but I really wanted to go over just a few of the more details about He-Man, which I've been looking forward to. The character itself is wonderfully rendered. His muscle sculpture and the actual details in the sculpture itself are really well done. Really gives a lot of options for how to pose the character. The skin tone on He-Man is quite excellent. I really have to applaud the decisions, again, that were made by the Four Horsemen. If we bring in our tape measure here, we can see that He-Man stands about, yeah, pretty much about the 7-inch mark. Just maybe just shy of 7 inches. He really is an impressive character. So let's zoom in for a closer look. There have been some comments about how shiny his skin is. I sort of understand that. Looking at them here under the studio lights, you can really see that there is a lot of glow that happens, and the light seems to reflect off of the sculpting itself. But under regular conditions, regular lighting, you really don't notice it that much. I am very pleased with the way the skin tone is. Some people who have collected the original Masters of the Universe collection classics have the original Filmation version, which was released by Mattel. And I believe that the color on that skin was a little bit more matte. So, having said that, I think that people who already have that version and have collected this version have noticed the shinier skin. But, in my opinion, I think that this version is actually very well done. And if you have only started collecting it at this stage, I really don't think you're going to notice the shininess of the skin too much. As you can see, even if I just put my hand away and sort of mask off the harshness of the light, you can see that the reflectiveness of the skin is actually not so bad. These are really bright lights and really reflect highlights very, very much. So I think that if you do have regular lights in your regular room or wherever it is that you display your collection, I don't think you're going to have too much of a problem. Let's have a moment and take a look at the sculpting on He-Man's face. This really is a wonderful detailed sculpt of the Filmation version of He-Man. There are some slight differences in this sculpt compared to the actual cartoon, but I think that the quality that's displayed here is very reminiscent of the actual cartoon. The cheekbones themselves are very well sculpted, and in a lot of ways, the lack of actual detail in the face really lends itself well to the way the Filmation version actually looked. I really do like the intensity in the eyes. Mine were painted on extremely well. The eyes aren't too far forward, they aren't too far to the left, they aren't too far to the right. They're actually pretty much exactly where I would like them to be. The mouth and the jawline, in terms of what I'm looking for in a figure, are perfect. This is excellent. A couple things to note. Unlike the first version that was released by Mattel in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, this head is just slightly different. If you actually take a quick peek underneath the hair here, you might actually be able to see he has sculpted ears. That is a wonderful attention to detail. I think that is amazing. Again, never say never, guys. I mean, they always say that the first version can't be matched, but in some ways, they can improve upon them on the second time around. And I think that is a wonderful detail. The hair itself is actually wonderfully matte. It's nowhere near as shiny as, again, the skin would be. And it really matches the way the Filmation looks, especially the way the hairline is parted in this section here. Really indicative of what it was in the Filmation version. Moving along, the straps are very much the way they appeared in the Filmation version of the cartoon. In the original He-Man toy, there were several different ruby crystals which are embedded here at the top of the actual straps. They are not present in the Filmation version and therefore not present here on He-Man in the Filmation version of the toy. The straps themselves fit very nicely on He-Man. They are sculpted in such a way that you can move them around a little bit, maybe for better posing and such. But unfortunately, unlike the original toy, they are not removable straps. I do believe the first version of the Classics Filmation released by Mattel actually did have removable straps. Why they decided not to allow for these straps to be removed, we're going to leave that as a mystery. Now, having said that, I think that the portion where they're actually attached is only glued on. So if you really wanted to make it an issue and decide to take them off, I suppose that's your decision. But keep in mind, I don't think that they're actually reattachable. He-Man does have his signature furry loincloth. This really is something that has just carried over time after time with He-Man. He has never gotten real briefs like Superman or anything of that nature. They've always remained these furry loincloth. Now, from what I understand, unlike the Classics version, which had a bit of a hanging loincloth, this one is not. This one's more traditional, much like the original toys, where it's a singular, complete piece all the way around. He-Man's wrist straps are wonderfully rendered here. If you remember, in the original toy, He-Man pretty much had one wristband and one, almost like a gauntlet type of idea, but it was not even a complete gauntlet. It was just a cover of a gauntlet. That always kind of struck me as a little bit strange, but you know, I'm not the I'm not the toy designer, so we'll leave that as a mystery as to why that is. The hands themselves are wonderfully rendered as well. They are in a clasping pose, but that's to be expected, as that was the way the original toy was. I might have preferred maybe one or two different hands just to give it a little bit more, variety, but I really do like the way these hands are sculpted, and I think that they really match the character very well. Moving further down, He-Man's signature boots. These are very different, and you know what? I think we have to talk about these a little bit, as the Classics version apparently have been famously labeled the worst boots of all time. And these ones, for Super 7, have rectified and corrected that error, as the wonderful ankle joints are much better designed here. And the way they solved the actual pivot is much, much more indicative of what the new figures have benefited greatly from that new technique. The head is actually movable left and right, and of course it can go a full 360 as it is on a ball joint, but again, why would you do that? He can look up to a certain degree and down, not too much. I mean, you could force it a little bit of a wobble side to side, but other than that, great articulation on that end. The arms do go out a full 90 degrees. Then we have a bicep swivel here, left for the left and right. The elbow joint is a full 90-degree tilt on a ratchet joint. The wrists as well go up and down, and they do swivel 180 degrees if so desired. There is an ab crunch, as we can see right here. So He-Man can go forward and then back to a certain degree. Great articulation there. The legs do go about almost 90 degrees, a little bit shy. The knees do bend up to 90 degrees on the ratchet joint. Right there. Great articulation there. The boots do have a swivel right at the calf. The ankles bend all the way forward like that, and all the way up like that. Great articulation on that end. And does He-Man do the splits? Well, let's find out. Yes, He-Man does the Van Damme splits. That is amazing. That is the Van Damme motion there. And of course, he does also have a swivel on the inner calf as well. Great stuff. This being the Ultimates collection, it's advertised as having a lot more accessories than the original Mattel Masters of the Universe Classics version that was released a while ago. But, of course, He-Man wouldn't be He-Man without his power sword. And here it is, once again, very similar to the original power sword that was included in the Mattel version. It's a lot thinner than his traditional Masters of the Universe Classics version. This is definitely indicative of the Filmation version of the Sword of Power. It's a lot thinner than the original Sword of Power, which has two halves and shares a likeness to Skeletor's sword. But I believe Filmation made the decision to make it a little bit thinner so it would look better as a cartoon. It's a wonderful rendition of the actual Sword of Power. Very, very little detail, and that matches the actual cartoon version. Next up is He-Man's signature axe. Now, this was actually supposed to be He-Man's primary weapon at one point. Filmation really did emphasize the idea of the Power Sword, leaving this little guy behind. This signature axe is very different from the original axe that came with the He-Man from the 1980s. This one is a brand new sculpt compared to the original version. I sort of like this axe. It's got some nice well-defined lines. A very different top pommel here. Interesting. And we can actually see through the axe itself. That's very interesting as well. The bottom pommel is very well detailed. And as a matter of fact, it's actually not as detailed as it could be. But once again, that really plays in with the cartoon aesthetic that they were going for here in the Filmation version of He-Man. The next accessory is another signature He-Man piece. But when you see it in real life, you start realizing that something happened in production. They increased his shield over 40% in size. My gosh, it's massive. This thing is huge. Now, the shield that He-Man had originally in the 1984 toy, it was about, like I said, about 20 or 30% smaller than this. This thing is gigantic. If we put it right up to He-Man, we can see it covers almost the entire length of the body. It is his torso, sorry. It literally is a Spartan type of shield. And I'm sort of at a miss as to why this was done this way. I think there was an episode in the cartoon where they were battling with swords and shields. I think it was actually Prince Adam and Man-at-Arms. And the shields are about this size, but my goodness, this thing is gigantic. This thing is like immense. Wonderful addition though. I love the red highlights and the silver trim. Again, very little detail, minimal detail, sorry, to keep with the Filmation aesthetic. One of the highlight features of the Ultimates He-Man are his signature faces. He comes with 3 additional heads. The first head is actually indicative of the San Diego Comic-Con fun little addition, the smiling, laughing He-Man. This is, again, an homage to the laughing Prince Adam, which became a meme a number of years ago, and Super7 followed that meme up with a collectible exclusive. Well, it turned out to be a release later on, but at San Diego Comic-Con it was debuted, and really has that fun little jovial aspect of He-Man throwing his head back and just having a great laugh. This is great. The skin tone is more indicative of He-Man, a little bit more tan. All the heads, I believe, do have ears. This is a really great addition, and the sculpting is just wonderful. I love the emotion captured in here with all the laughing He-Man, the squinting eyes, and again, minimalistic details just to capture that Filmation look. This one is, of course, a fan favorite. This is the Faker head, which again was an episode in the Masters of the Universe cartoon. The eyes are painted in a glowing paint, which is really neat. You can probably see this effect on other pictures and things like that. I might try to get a shot of it glowing, but right now these lights are definitely not going to be cooperating. But the look, it really captures the look of the Faker robot that Skeletor had created to fool Man-at-Arms and everyone, and actually fight He-Man toe-to-toe. Wonderful sculpting here. There is a bit of a flash cut right here, which is unfortunate. But other than that, wonderfully done. I really love the way this particular head sculpt looks. And last but not least, a really fun addition. In one of the episodes, Man-at-Arms actually created a robot decoy for He-Man. And this was a fun little addition. When he took off the faceplate, these gigantic bug-like eyes just came out. Has those signature red lines to indicate that it is just a decoy robot. Great stuff. Was able to fool Skeletor when he tried to attack Castle Grayskull in He-Man's absence. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful nod to the Filmation version which it came from. There's a little bit of paint scuff here. Again, this is to be expected in mass production like this. It's not a deal breaker by any means. I really do love the sculpt. It's almost exactly the way it looked in the Filmation version. I really applaud the Four Horsemen for being able to do such a great job in the sculpting process. wonderful. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed my look at the Classics He-Man Filmation version from Super7. This, for me, is a dream come true, guys. I really, really love this version of He-Man. The way the Super7 guys and the Four Horsemen have been able to realize this wonderful version of He-Man is amazing and truly iconic, and something which is a dream of mine to have owned all those years ago, watching the cartoon as a kid. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a like. It really helps me out. If you have any comments or suggestions on anime, cartoons, toys, collectibles, or anything else you'd like me to review, please leave that in the comment section below. And consider subscribing, as it helps YouTube to realize that I'm doing a great job and you guys enjoy my work. Well, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Geek proud. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the link in the description below. I've got more videos on the way, and we'll see you at the next one. Geek proud.